for posterity's sake. Yes, okay. I was hoping, Hazel, that you could let Lieutenant Colonel Gallipo know that we were in this meeting to start. I think I saw that he was trying to join the executive session. Flip side is he'll be there waiting for us, I guess, in a little bit.
Sure, I'll reach out to him.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if you guys were in close proximity or if you had special secret National Guard messaging systems and stuff like that. So here. I guess we will get started. I'll start the first thing. Did anybody have corrections or clarifications from the last meeting? Any items? Recording makes it nice. It helps do away with errors to go back and if you have questions. So if there's not, we'll move on. I saw Nate shake to the negative, so I'm hoping that he speaks on behalf of all of the council. All right. Today's agenda. Well, does anybody have any items they would like to add to the agenda other than what was sent out? I should do that first. If you do, either just speak up or raise your hand. I'll give it a second and then we'll move on. All right. So my proposed agenda was we would do like we did the last meeting, break from here, enter executive session, do a little bit of a deeper dive on the dashboard that we ended up building out between our last meeting and now, that hopefully folks have had a chance to look at. Come back from that executive session to the open meeting. And when we return, the next thing that we have two things on the horizon as charged in statute. The first is to build out a strategic plan, right? So take what we've learned through this and figure out what is some meaningful initiatives that we should consider starting to help improve the posture of cyber readiness for critical infrastructure operators and also municipalities. The other piece is to, I believe, somewhere around the middle of January, we have an annual report due from the committee. So this year's will be substantially different than last year's, which was nothing more than saying we got together and had one meeting and that was it. We have a lot to report on, and I will probably start working on that likely in November so that we can have that done. Everybody have some adequate review time. So those are the two things that we've got in front of us right now. What I was hoping to do is when we return from the executive session is to be more of a working session, get ideas out, no bad ideas. Let's just get on the table all sorts of different thoughts of what we should consider for the strategic plan. And then we can, in between this session, what's our next meeting? November, maybe through email or some document collaboration, refine that so that we have something to review come November. So that's what I'm thinking. Any questions or comments about the agenda? Okay. With that, I think we can hang this meeting up and see you all in take a couple minutes. We'll start at 1:45 in the executive session. I believe, well, let me back up. First, I got to have a motion to adjourn and do that, to enter the executive session. Second, so we have the motion. Who was that? Was that you, Nate?
Yep, that's Nate.
I'll second.
And that was Erica
Yeah.
for my housekeeping. I always forget I want to get right into the nuts and bolts and I forget all the administrative stuff. So, like last session, we have a number of guests that have worked with us and have a vested interest from the state. Is there any concern with them joining us in executive session? Excellent. I'm reading Nate's body language. So, all right then. So we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll see you at 1:45 in the executive session meeting. Thank you. We have started. So, I try to just give some, quick guidance as to, what are some initiatives we consider very high level, right? We can put, we can define it more as we move forward. Things about like what will benefit, who will benefit from it, when can it happen? Well, how will we be able to do it and why is it going to matter? I want to bounce over and I have a document started where a few folks have shared thoughts already. And so we'll share that. And then if you've got ideas, throw them either in the chat or blurt them out. Whatever works well for you. So the ones that I put in was, from my looking at this, very high level, there seemed to be across all the sectors, some had more in one category than the other, but you could really bin them as three levels. There was those that are doing stuff and they've got a pretty good idea what they're doing and they're making progress. There are those that have like started, but maybe they've got some basic policies or something like that. And then there are those that are haven't even started, right? To them, it's the never-ending merry-go-round where it doesn't even become obvious as to where to start. Right? And so, when you look, we had a lot of either knows and I don't knows, and then we had another band on a lot of questions of either planned or in process, right? So those are to me like that middle tier where they either know or they've been working at it, but they haven't quite got there. And then there's those that are actively doing different things. So I was like, okay, well, if that's the rough banding of where folks are at, these organizations, then do we need to think about having at least programs or initiatives that target kind of each level, right? Something that's basic, entry level, let's get you going. Something that's, okay, you're started, right? Now you probably need help to like do a risk assessment and help prioritize, what risks to manage, which ones to accept right now, and where to go next. And then the last is probably the one that the most mature ones, probably the one thing that I was thinking would be, how do we come up with a like near real time sharing of information so that all of those that are at let's call them at a peer level, can benefit from the work not only they're doing, but also the other organizations that are just as mature, right? And if all of a sudden somebody gets a certain hit on something, right, it's notification information can be shared. Because right now, a lot of what is happening in Vermont or anywhere, right? And correct me if I misunderstand how things are working now, but it really tends to flow in the sectors, right? And so you have, if you're seeing some sort of nefarious activity, you report it up through your sector, through federal channels. The highest level of the federal channels have to determine whether or not they think it's sector specific or not, and then share that across to the other sectors, and then it flows back down through your, ISAC that supports your sector, or through a CISA announcement or something like that. And so that takes time. And what I'm wondering is can we support each other that are on a higher end by skipping over that, right?
Yeah, and I think we do have like the Vermont Fusion Center, but the Vermont Fusion Center primarily gets its inputs from federal inputs that came up from, like you said, those sector groups that then filter up through and then come back down. So, it kind of has to go up to national, to come back to the state, and then get put out. And is there an opportunity for us to plug direct, maybe it's the Fusion Center, maybe it's something different, but where you have a direct plug instead of an up and down?
Yeah, it's parallel. Obviously, it's not going to, right, in your sector, you still have obligations. Some of them are regulatory to report and stuff, but is there an opportunity for us to, through voluntary means, structure something that we can share information and collaborate and shortcut that circuit that could have pretty significant travel time to it? And these are ideas, right? What's that?
Sean, it's Sean Lone. I'm at the Vic right now. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot more direct contact from a lot of sectors, even on cyber events. They're calling us directly before going to the federal side because we can give them a faster response. And then we're helping them manage their contacts with the federal side. So we're starting to keep it within the state first so we can get faster reporting out there. That's one of our goals over the past year. So just kind of leveraging the same idea right now.
That's good to know. And it's actually, so I met with Mr. LaFond yesterday on this very thing because they're evaluating some technology that could assist with this. And so, I mean, I think it's there's an opportunity. Some things are lining up rather nicely where maybe we can have a little bit of a value add for those that are mature without any cost, right? It's just a participatory, signing up and participating in this. So those are some different things that I was thinking about. And then, as we talked about, contract languages are a way to provide templated examples or, specific stuff to help folks out. Templated incident response plan, right? I think for a lot of entities that are just getting started out, trying to create one is maybe daunting. So how can you get started with something that is, it's set up in a way that they follow the bouncing ball, answer the questions, and next thing you know, they come out the other side and they have something that's helpful to them without necessarily having to be hire the Nate Kuchers of the world to come in and help them do that. The super smart. No, picking on you, Nate. And then the last one is predetermined resources to assist with this work. And I was talking to someone, and they were in the municipal side, but their municipality had at least like a water utility, maybe they even had something else. And their biggest thing was like, we don't even know where to turn, right? We know we don't have the resources in-house, but we don't know if the guy that swaps out hard drives for us is going to be capable of helping us get to the next level from a cyber perspective. And so we had talked about this in the past about how the state sits on like pre-vetted vendors in our retainer pool that we have selected and are agreed to our terms. So maybe it's a matter of like sharing resources like that, right? So it's like, hey, if you need something, here's 5 vendors that are already under contract with the state of Vermont. They've agreed to Vermont terms. They're registered with the Secretary of State. We have confidence they will be able to help you type thing. So those were the high level thoughts I had. Eric shared a couple of really insightful ones around, not getting into defining more standards and frameworks, and how in many environments the situation is rather unique. And so, and I agree, Eric, I'm never going to advocate for like setting up our own. We're not going to have like NIST for Vermont, right? I mean, I don't see that as the need. What I see is like, how can we're going to give it, for instance, we have been talking to Champlain College about their Leahy Center, what is it, for digital cybersecurity and digital forensics, maybe is the title. What could they do, right? I mean, as their laboratory and their environment, do they have, could we find a way that students could be resources to help these small entities that have no resource at all come in and do assessments and plan for improvements and help them prioritize and things like that. So I agree about, we don't need more standards. It's getting everybody to just work to what's out there. And then your comment time about figuring out how organizations can pool resources and utilize shared services. I think that's, and especially when it comes to incident response, one of the reasons, and I think, Colonel Kreider can attest, we've had conversations ongoing about, what does the Guard, what is their expertise, how can they help, and in looking to create I would love for Vermont to have like enough organizations participating in like a mutual aid type system for cyber that, no one organization is going to have all the resources it needs, right? So, but if they get hit with something, there's already, NDAs have been signed, people have been, background checked and cleared, and, and there's a high, maybe some cursory training, and so that then all of a sudden you now have a pool of resources that could assist you, not just those that are only employees of the organization. So that's a great, and I think, you talk about the pen testing. That's like, again, one of the things we've been talking to Champlain College, right? Is that something that we can get them to do through some grant programs to really help the small ones that aren't going to have the resources financially or human to do the work themselves. And then Sue Fritz had, like want to do word changing, which I'm fine with that on the 1 and 2. I think those 1 and 2 meaning what I had identified up above. Sorry, I'm probably making you sick with my scrolling. And then it says, do we have enough data from the survey to help us group respondents into those tiers to better understand the challenge? And we can like look at them by sector, but we don't know who they are, right? So the important thing, I think, is to think about what goes with this is what kind of outreach program needs to kind of wrap around whatever we develop so that we have the means to go out and work with folks and help them recognize where they are and start to participate in the programs. And then she has a couple of bullets with around the education and awareness, speaking to like using existing resources. And when I was going back, we were exchanging emails today. One of my comments was, I'm like, well, if the existing resources worked really well, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, right? So there's a shortcoming, whether it's the resources aren't put in front of the right people at the right time so that they can be like, oh yeah, that's what I need to do next. Or they just missed the mark because they're not either have a Vermont bend on it, or it's not sector specific, or, it's missing something that just doesn't resonate with folks to use it. So that was one of hers. Vulnerability awareness and mitigation. She talks about kind of morphing that more to risk analysis and management, which I think that is a part of that maturing, right? You start with like, okay, where are my big weak points, and then how do I shore those up, and then start to move into kind of more of a risk management mindset across the full organization. Then the next one is, it feels like there are plenty of resources for real-time information sharing. What can we do differently or additionally in this space? So I think it's what we were talking about earlier, right? When you brought up how do we, instead of doing the whole up the federal chain across and down, right? How do we short circuit that a little bit and start sharing things ourselves? And like I said, the Fusion Center is actually looking at technology that would be Vermont specific and helpful to us to do something like that, right? And so, so I think the important thing, well, I shouldn't say that. And some of this is from people I've talked to, right? That are in different areas, but CISA bulletins, right? A lot of the stuff that comes out is really geared towards the IT professional. Right? If you are the town clerk and in a rural community, and you also try to like patch the computers and make sure the network is up and everything else, just as part of the hat of what a town clerk, they often don't mean anything to them, right? Or they don't, they're not necessarily always provided in a layperson terminology so that people could take what's being shared and be like, oh, this is what I actually need to do. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is, if we had a means for people to share information, is, folks could be like, hey, I'm in this situation. Does this really matter to me? And what is it, or what does it mean, right? What does it mean for me? And hopefully not feel like, how do I want to say it? An open space to ask questions and crowdsource help to understand what the impact is to a small place versus those that have CISOs and dedicated security staff. And then our last one is about the tools and templates, but really about like where are the resources to assist with this, right? Because I think in some instances it's going to require people to support interpreting those templates or whatever's provided for certain situations. So thank you, Sean. Those are what we have. And I am open to, please share other thoughts you have. I'll just take them down right now. And if not, then I'm going to probably be hounding you over the next few weeks to like share them via email with me so we can start to build something out. So
yeah, and don't bother trying to write this down as I talk, because I can email you after once I put it more structured. But like, if I'm just thinking about the things we just talked about, right? If I pull themes out of that, a lot of what Stu was talking about was really about resourcing and how do we do it. And I think there's probably a lot of sense to that the reason some of these smaller players can't take advantage of the educational material out there is because there's no one sitting there to consume it, right? Like you can pass all the templates and education, but if there's no one there to read them and receive them, it doesn't do it. So how do we solve that resourcing challenge for the under-resourced? And I think that's some of the things you were talking about, like where is that state grants? Where is that academic partnerships? Where is that National Guard possibly support? Like where is that cross-sector support where we can have some kind of, safety and non-compete scenarios and some of those things. So I think that's a big part of it for that, and like establishing group. I think for the more established group, it's some of the things you were talking about, which is really around how do we facilitate that collaboration, and some of that is information sharing. But I also think about even still somewhat was a little bit back into the resourcing, but how do we have some of those agreements to allow safe collaboration between those sectors and remove some of the legal concerns that might come out of that? How do we support that from state structures? Opportunities like doing a cross-sector impact assessments, right? Like what happens to my organization if Erica's organization is under attack, right? And thinking about that. And maybe even building from that from a tabletop perspective, right? Rather than just doing a tabletop of within an organization, maybe we're doing a state cross-sector tabletop. What happens when this water system goes down? How does that, matriculate out through the rest of the sectors, and how do we respond to that as a state? Those are the kind of things that are really hard for us to do individually as an organization because of some of the legalities of that. So it's maybe an opportunity for under these kind of state programs to give that sort of protective tent that we can all get together under and collaborate.
Yeah. That's awesome. Please, I jotted down just enough so that I know when I get the email from you where I need to place it and what it's about. But I mean, I don't know if Colonel Kreider is still on, but I went down to Cyber Yankee this year, right? And the Guard has access to those resources that we could probably do something on a smaller scale here that's quite similar, where we're not just focused on one group or even one sector, right? But we look at, okay, we're gonna pick on poor Joe. Joe Duncan systems go down. What's it mean for you and Erica and everybody else that's served by the Champlain Water District? And not only, right, because those things aren't going to be just good cyber exercises, they're also continuity of operation things that we may or may not be thinking of on a regular basis. And they have, I don't know, Colonel Kreider, are you still on?
I am.
Were the simulation tools that were being used by the Guard, if I remember right, was it the Marine Reserve that was running the exercise?
So the exercise is run by the Region 1 Army National Guard states. The Marines participated as the red team. I don't know
That's right.
specifically what tools they were using just because I'm not a technical person, but I can reach out and ask. And then the cyber range that the blue teams used is PCTE, which is an Army cyber range resource that we have access to.
And would that be available for us, or is that purely like DoD type stuff?
I believe it's purely DoD, but I'm happy to ask the question. It's something that I've only worked with for a few times now, kind of being new to this world. So I'll reach out and ask the question, but my impression is that it's purely DoD.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff, right, that Nate, if we can find, and if I remember right, I think Champlain has they've built out a cyber range now, right? And so maybe that's right, that academic partnership where we get in there and they can act as the range wardens or what the range folks and manage something that's a little bit more of an event than just a tabletop. So that's a great idea. Thank you.
And some of the smaller organizations could also even just sit in and watch just to get a feel for they're not ready to do an incident response tabletop themselves, but they start to just get a feel for it, and it's a little less mysterious to them at that point.
Yep. We are at time. I can hang out for a few minutes. I want to respect everybody else's. If you have immediate ideas, I will be right here and you can jot them out. If not, feel free to send me an email. I'm going to keep this. We're going to have to work on this probably through collaboration on a document and some email harassment from me to make progress so we have something a little bit more tangible for the November meeting. So, but I understand if you have commitments and you need to leave. So,
Do we need to do anything as far as adjournment before we lose a quorum? Because I am one of those people who has to drop at 3.
oh, then we definitely do because we're borderline on a quorum. So, we should probably adjourn, and we will put a bow on this, and we will do more through email. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay.
Who's that? Was that Nate? On the second I heard from? Yeah. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you all. Stay tuned. Look for emails from me. Have a good rest of your day. Hi, Mr. Kaiser.
Hey, so to expand on my note